There's a pattern that almost nobody talks about honestly. Not because it's rare, because it's embarrassing. It's the pattern of wanting connection, deeply, genuinely wanting it, and then, when it arrives, finding a way to make it leave. Pulling back just when things get close. Finding reasons why this person isn't right. Becoming cold exactly when someone becomes warm. Picking the fight that doesn't need to happen. Disappearing from the relationship that was actually going well. And then, alone again, in the aftermath of something that could have been good. Wondering what is wrong with you. Nothing is wrong with you. But something happened to you. And today, we're going to talk about what it was. Let's start with the psychology. Because the inability to accept love is not about love. It's about safety. Your nervous system, the part of you that processes threat and safety at a level far below conscious thought, learned something early. It learned what closeness felt like in your first relationships, in your family, in the earliest attachments that shaped your understanding of what it means to let someone in. And if closeness, in those early relationships, came with pain, if love was unpredictable or conditional, or came with strings attached, or disappeared without warning, or was expressed through control rather than care, then your nervous system filed that information away. It learned closeness is not safe, not as a thought, not as a belief you can examine and argue with, as a felt sense, a body-level knowing that operates automatically, below the level of conscious decision. And then you grew up, and someone came along who was actually safe, who was actually consistent, who actually wanted to love you without an agenda, and your nervous system, doing exactly what it was trained to do, raised the alarm. Psychologists call this an avoidant attachment pattern, and it is one of the most misunderstood dynamics in all of relationship psychology, because from the outside it looks like not wanting love, like being cold, like being commitment phobic or emotionally unavailable or simply not ready. But that's not what's happening. What's happening is that the closer someone gets, the more the nervous system interprets that closeness as threat. The warmth that should feel good triggers an old alarm. The vulnerability that intimacy requires activates a defense that was built for a very different situation. The person doesn't pull away because they don't care. They pull away because some part of them cares so much that the prospect of losing it is already unbearable. The avoidance is not indifference. It's preemptive protection. Here's where it gets more specific. Because there are several distinct ways this pattern shows up, and most people who have it recognize themselves in at least one of them. The first is idealization, followed by devaluation. The relationship starts with an intensity that feels like the real thing. Finally, this is it. And then, as the person becomes more real, more human, more close, the flaws that were invisible become suddenly unbearable. The pedestal gets kicked away, and the person who was everything becomes someone you need to leave. This is not fickleness. It's the nervous system moving someone from the safe category of idealized and distant to the threatening category of real and close, and responding to the threat by finding reasons to create distance. The second is self-sabotage at the threshold. Things are going genuinely well. The relationship is actually working. And then, a fight that didn't need to happen. A withdrawal that came from nowhere. A suddenly discovered incompatibility that wasn't visible before. The relationship brought back to a level of distance that feels manageable. The third is simply not letting people in. Keeping every relationship at a certain depth. Being warm. Being engaging. Being genuinely enjoyable to be around. And ensuring that nobody ever gets past a certain point. The door is always slightly closed, and the people who try to open it further find eventually that it doesn't move. Let's talk about what this costs. Because the protection is real. The walls keep out the pain of potential loss. But they keep out everything else too. They keep out the experience of being truly known, of having someone see the complicated, unedited version of you and stay, of the specific repair that only happens when someone loves you not despite your history, but with full knowledge of it. People with avoidant patterns often describe a persistent loneliness that coexists with the relief of solitude. They want connection. They create distance. The distance confirms that connection isn't coming. The loneliness deepens. The need for connection intensifies. The defenses strengthen. It's a cycle. And without understanding it, it runs indefinitely. So what does it actually take to break through? The first thing is recognizing the pattern in real time. Not in retrospect, not 6 months after the relationship ended when you can finally see what happened, but in the moment, when the urge to pull back arrives, when the invented reason to leave surfaces, when the fight that doesn't need to happen begins to form. Naming it, this is the pattern, this is the protection, this is not the actual situation, is not enough to stop it, but it creates a small space between the impulse and the action. And in that space, a different choice becomes possible. The second thing is tolerating the discomfort of closeness, because closeness will feel uncomfortable. It will trigger the alarm, the nervousness, the urge to flee, the sudden conviction that something is wrong. All of that will come. And the work is not to make those feelings go away. It's to stay anyway, to remain in the relationship while the nervous system runs its old program, and to accumulate enough experience of closeness without catastrophe that the program slowly, gradually updates. This is slow. It requires patience that feels almost impossible, and it almost always requires support, a therapist, a relationship that is patient enough to hold the process. Here's what I want to leave you with. You are not broken for finding love difficult. You are someone whose nervous system learned in very good faith that closeness was dangerous. And it learned that lesson from the closest people in your earliest life. That lesson was wrong. Not about them. About now. You are allowed to let someone in. Not all at once. Not without fear. But enough. Enough to find out what happens when someone actually stays. If this described something you've been living inside for a long time, you already know what it's pointing at.